Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Sugar Mama's Fireplay podcast. I am financial planner, Canna Campbell. As always, a reminder, all of my content, blog posts, podcasts, YouTube videos, anything you see on Instagram, it's always general advice only. Now, as you guys know, I'm a financial planner. My job is about calculations and rules and regulations and caps and taxes and looking at the efficiency of money. But I don't know if you guys know about this, but I'm also an incredibly spiritual person. But I'm very shy about my spiritual connection, particularly around money. But to be really raw and honest with you guys, it's a very powerful element in my own wealth creation journey. And I love doing my Manifesting March challenge because it really does open up the floodgates. And I'm always blown away every year by what I managed to manifest on a financial level. I made a 2 affirmations podcast for you where I talk about being open to the flow of money and to having a positive attitude around money and being comfortable with money and having a great acceptance of money and prosperity in your life and the laws of attraction and abundance. And I made this podcast shortly after Manifesting March, and I made it in the second person. So it was all like, you will receive money. You will be open to the flow of money. You will seize opportunities that come your way. You are a money magnet. And then the second podcast, which I actually published last week, was in the first person. So, I am grateful for the flow of money in my life. I am excited about having greater financial prosperity in my life. I'm excited about helping other people in my life when it comes to having more flow and abundance and acceptance with money. And it's amazing what happens when I listen to these affirmations, because just the weirdest stuff happens. So I'm going to make another podcast sharing some of my personal stories. But a couple of weeks ago, I received an amazing email from a lady named Meg, who we're going to chat to in a second. And she wrote in her email to me that she'd never done this type of work before, affirmations and money manifestations. And she had an incredible breakthrough and managed to manifest just over $10,000. So Meg has very kindly agreed to share with us her story about how she manifested this money, what she did, how she learned to become open and accepting, because this type of work only will work for you if you're willing to give it a go and have faith and just be open as to where this part of your financial well-being and may take you. So Meg, thank you so much for coming on to Sugar Mama's Fireplay this morning. First of all, have you ever done this type of work before?
No, I haven't. So I guess like you, Canna, I work in financial planning as well. So yes, we're working with guidelines and everything is black and white. And I've been a long time follower of yours. And I started listening to your manifestation podcast. And I loved when you would always say, like, you need to be open to the flow of money and what we appreciate appreciates. And I think that is so true. When you open up to respecting money, it grows and you tend to look at it in a different way. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to give this a go. And it was amazing. It really was.
Some people are very close to this, and that's fine. I don't push my spirituality on everyone. That's probably why I'm so shy about it, because it's my thing. I sort of think, oh, no one's going to listen to me if I tell them about being open to the flow of money. And I'd say I'm almost embarrassed about it. So I love it when people reach out to me and say, hey, this happened to me, that happened to me. And I have to say, I probably received about at least 10 DMs of people with amazing stories similar to yourself from that particular podcast. When you first heard my podcast, what did you think? Were you like, oh, what's Canna talking about? Like, come on, it's all about hard work and hustling and being smart with money. And what was your initial reaction to it?
I think whilst I agree that's definitely such a big element of it, but there's also that other element of it of, like you always say, respecting it and being open to it. And I guess it's how you treat money, like you're going to get that in return. So for a bit of context, my husband and I, we were actually away and we had achieved probably a pretty big financial goal of ours. Like we built a new home last year and how we structured the finance around it, like it was a really big goal and we had done that. And we were sort of like, okay, what's next? Like I'm a very goal-orientated black and white type of person. What am I going to do now? What's next? And I just hadn't quite found what I was connected to. I was like, I'd love to pay off what's left on our mortgage. That's really great. But I just thought, already making extra payments. Like, what am I going to do that's going to spark joy or something like that? Yeah. And I had listened to your March manifestation podcast, and I have done the $1,000 project a number of times. Yeah. And I was like, I'm going to do this. And I remember I was running along the beach and I was listening to your podcast and I was like, oh my gosh, it was like an awakening. I need to do this. I immediately went and told my husband, and he was like, okay. These guys, like, I'm sure Tom's the same, they tend to just go along.
It's funny. Tom's just starting to come around. Like, we've just moved house and the house needs quite a bit of work, but for the time being, we're not going to do any work. Fresh mortgage, and we don't want to be taking any money off the home loan to do work on the house. So I was like, when we need to put new carpet in, I'll come up with that money. Tom, he's like, you mean you're going to manifest it, aren't you, Kenna? I'm like, all right, go manifest it. We paid for our air conditioning in our new home through manifesting. Tom's like, we can't afford our air conditioning right now. Actually, no, because I've got that set in a separate account in cash. And he's like, how did you do that? I'm like, I manifested it. He's like, right, okay. And like, next on our list is, and look, this is a very sweeping generalization. I feel like some people, and I think there's a bias towards men, they're not trusting in this necessarily.
And my husband is someone that sort of sees through the crack. Like, he's just like, what are you on about? But he sort of was like, okay then, like, we'll go along with this. And now obviously he's completely on board after we've manifested this money. But yes, having been super goal oriented, I was like, okay, I'm going to write down what I want to manifest. Originally the goal was $1,500, and I thought, I'm going to write this down, and $1,500, we're going to use a chunk of that to put it against the mortgage. Let's just do that. I started thinking about it. I was like, oh, that's always great to pay a chunk off your mortgage, but I didn't quite feel connected. I was like, oh, we just wanted something more. So I was like, bigger. Yeah, I was like, okay, I think I'm going to do the investing here. That's what I'm going to do. And I felt really connected to that. And then as the time sort of went on, I thought, oh, hang on a minute, like the $1,500 kind of racked up quite quickly. And then it's like, okay, I'm going to do $4,000 for the month. Let's see if we can do that. Then we sort of started getting closer to the $4,000 within like a short space of time. I was like, okay, well, the 4,000 is the goal. Anything I get over this, that's the added bonus. So it ended up being just over 10,000 that we had manifested. So obviously now husband's completely on board.
How did that money flow into your life?
Okay, so the first thing I did, I had a separate bank account for the money, because I'm the type of person that once you save it, get it across into that bank account, and as you see it grows, you become more motivated, I think.
If you don't transfer it, it evaporates. It will get used up by something else, intentionally or accidentally. And also by having that separate dedicated savings account, and even better is nicknaming it like something for that. Like, I'm about to name our next account, Carpet Savings Account. It just sort of keeps you eye on the game maybe, but keeps you focused and motivated and committed and connected to that goal, which is this is what the whole energy of money is about.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly what I did. So I named the account, and I had the goal amount of 4,000 written in the account name as well. So I would just see it all the time. And on my particular internet banking, I'm able to set up a quick view. So without logging in, you can see just the balance on certain accounts and the account name. So every time I would just click on my Macquarie Bank app, I could just see it there. So I really loved that, because I would check it multiple times a day. And I knew what the balance was, but I was like, I just want to check. I just got to check it all the time. There were a few things that we did. We sold some iPhones, which I actually got the idea from you, because I know that you did the same thing.
That was one of the first things I did for Manifesting March this year. And a secondhand iPhone sells like hotcakes.
It was insane. I had my husband, I think he put it up on Facebook Marketplace, and his phone, he's like, Meg, I'm working on site, and my phone's like binging with people wanting to grab these phones. So that was really great. So we had those sold in a couple of days, the cash deposited in the account. I sold lots on eBay, which I hadn't done a lot of eBay sales. I bought clothes, like I do that a lot, buying clothes and stuff secondhand. I thought, oh, I'll list some things. So clothes that the kids had outgrown, shoes that I wasn't wearing, clothes that I didn't wear. Like, I just sold it. And it all happened quite quickly, if that makes sense. That was, I felt like the manifesting happened. Like, it was just all selling. And I was. And I was so excited about it. And then during the month of April, we actually took our kids on our very first family holiday up to Queensland. And there were a few things. We ended up coming home with $3,000 of spending money that we didn't spend. There are a few
wow.
things that we did while we were away. At hotel room, like had like a little kitchenette. So I just went to Woolies. I bought stuff so we would have breakfast at the hotel. I'd make lunch and we'd have it by the pool rather than buying things. And we were just really intentional about what we were purchasing while we were away, what experiences brought us value, or what we sort of went, no, we're only doing it because we're on holiday. We don't really need to do that. So that was a huge kickstart into our account as well, which I really, really liked. I had some prepaid gym classes. I thought, I'm going to do these prepaid gym classes in a new gym that opened up near me. And then I sort of thought, I don't ordinarily go to the gym. I have everything at home. I have a treadmill, I have light weights. Like, why am I bothering to spend money at the gym? So I actually called the gym and I got a refund because I'd prepaid the classes. So they refunded that back to me.
Wow.
Which was great. A small little pay thing. I had actually dropped some of my hours at work due to just commitments with my kids and things like that. And I'd actually sort of underestimated what my wages were still going to be. So that little bit I transferred straight into the account for those couple of fortnights of wages through the month. I found, though, whilst a lot of those things sort of kicked the account along, I had a tax return as well, but the things that made the biggest difference were the smaller things that we didn't do, like not buying coffee, not buying takeaway, saving money on groceries, activities with the kids, kind of rather than going to the movies, opting for a play date at the park, things like that. And we sort of go, okay, we didn't go to the movies, we saved $100. Let's just transfer it straight away. And like you say, just quarantine it, or not buying the coffee, transfer it straight away. And I just noticed the account just sort of went up and up and up. So I became more motivated to look at other areas to save money too.
It almost, and this is what the $1,000 project for me is, it gamifies it. It's addictive because you're like, I want to get high, I want to get high, I want to get more, I want to get more.
Yeah.
And you start also getting a great sense of clarity in what you value because, for example, you said, instead of taking the kids to the movies, and kids to the movies, full stop, is so expensive now.
Oh, it's crazy.
Tickets, and then, of course, the choc top, the bottle of water, the popcorn, parking, as I discovered the other day when I took Rocco to the movies, just going, you know what, you can have just as much fun and potentially sometimes even more wholesome fun because you're out in the sunlight, you're out in the fresh air with nature, engaging with your kids, swinging from a monkey bar with them or helping them down a slide or something. So it's amazing. All those little things really do add up. And the thing with the whole manifesting is it's not just one thing. I think some people will get into the trap with saving. They think they have to do one or two things to save money. Actually, there's such a huge spectrum of opportunities and ideas to save money. And when you can open yourself up to all of them, they all help. And it's, or as you say, all those little things that add up.
Yeah, it really is. And I noticed, see, my husband is self-employed, so there were ways that I looked to that other spectrum of, okay, well, how can we save money within the business to be able to pay ourselves a little bit extra that week? So there were bits and pieces that were like, we could just cut that for this week and not have that particular thing and pay ourselves that little bit more. And it was an extra little wage out, so a little bit of extra in our super and all of that sort of stuff. So there was that element to it as well that helped.
When you're doing this, and I think when you're open to it, sometimes there are times, I know for myself, I'll hit a bit of a wall and there's like, nothing's happened. Like, where's the flow? Where's the flow? Did you feel that at all during it?
Yeah, I think there was sort of a time where I was like, okay, I've sold all I can. I'm going to be selling us on eBay soon. I've done everything that we sort of can. I sort of went to my husband, I'm like, do you have any ideas? And he's like, no, like you've done it all. So I found that it was like, okay, let's go back to revising the grocery budget, or let's look at electricity, or just those little bits and pieces I found, just going back to those core things that I found extra little savings into.
Recently, I hit a wall and I was like, oh gosh, nothing's happened for a while. Like, what's going on? And I did the same thing. I went back to the basics, looked at what my goal was, looked at if there was any sort of, I guess, self-sabotaging, underlining attitudes or habits happening. I listened to affirmations again, actually listened to a couple of them and really tried to sort of readjust my focus. And then it hit me. And I had these headphones and they were quite expensive headphones. I bought them almost a year ago. And whenever I used them and took a phone call, people were always like, a minute into speaking to you, I can't hear you. And people were complaining. I was like, oh, this is so frustrating. And I had taken them back to the store previously to try and get them fixed. And they're like, oh, yeah, they're fine. Anyway, I thought, you know what? I'm annoyed. These headphones are really expensive. Mm-hmm. They're not working. And I thought, you know what, I went back to the store and took them back again and said, look, this is the second time I'm now bringing them in. A minute into speaking to someone on the phone, everyone's complaining. It's not just one person, it's everyone's complaining that my volume really drops. I think there's something wrong with the microphone. Anyway, they looked at them and went, you know what? They said, even though these are out of warranty, this is not working sufficiently. You've got two options. We can give you a new pair, but we know that microphone's not great on these. So the other option is you get a refund. And I was like, and these were not cheap headphones. I was like, I'm taking the refund. It was a $790 refund.
Wow.
And admittedly, I had to get another headphone, but the headphone I purchased was half the price. And I'm like, that really adds up. That's incredible. I was like, out of the blue, that happened.
Yeah, and that happens so often, doesn't it? And you think sometimes you just have to ask the question, you know, like that with the refund. Otherwise, you would just let them sit there and probably not use them and still gone and bought the $400 other headphones so people could hear you. But you go, oh, just go back and ask the question about the refund and, yep, there we go, got it back.
I did not expect that at all. It's really quite magical. All right, so you started small. You know, you didn't go for the $10,000. You went for the $1,500. So really, you know, that saying, if you can imagine it, you can have it. Yep. You listened to the affirmations, you wrote down the goals, you connected with the goals, you had a separate dedicated savings account, you nicknamed that goal, you checked it on a regular basis. As soon as something happened, you just shifted it and transferred it across. And how long did it take you for that $10,002?
It ended up being almost 6 weeks. So it was all of April and half of May that we did it in. And then I spent the last 2 weeks of May manifesting $500 to then top up our emergency fund with that extra $500. And I think that may have gone past the end of May, like into June a little bit, but I ended up topping up that account by another sort of $500. And then after that, I guess like you said earlier, you become addicted to it, that you go, oh, what am I going to do next? So I kept topping up our emergency fund, and not necessarily out of funds that we just manifested. It was also out of some of our salary every week, direct debiting into that account. So I ended up topping up our emergency fund by another just over 10,000 to now. So I've been like really grinding, working hard, doing that. So now we've got sort of just over 4 months of living expenses saved in our emergency fund, which I'm really pleased about, which is great.
So what's the next thing you're going to manifest?
So originally that $10,000 I wanted to take and put it into a Vanguard account and invest. And we actually set up, which was a huge goal of ours, to set up a family trust. So I was taking the $10,000 and going to invest it there. Now, I'd spoken to Vanguard and they don't offer directly that structure. So I'm back to revisiting how we're going to now invest that. It'll likely be through a Macquarie investment platform. So that's sort of the next thing. But a huge thing that we're now working on is our mortgage. So I've now sort of set the goals and the parameters around that and wanting to pay that down. So that is now our next big one. You know, I was sending my husband screenshots the other day of, this is how, if we put this much towards it, this is how long we have until we've got it paid off. And then we were sort of really excited about that and having a really big conversation about, okay, well, how can we do more? How can we contribute more to the mortgage every month? What are we going to do?
It's such an exciting conversation to have. It's almost like there's glue in relationships on obviously so many different levels and subject matters. But when you're on the same page with money, and particularly on the same page with money, and more importantly around a financial goal that excites you both, I feel so close to Tom when we have something that we're common goal that we're excited about doing.
Yeah, and I love hearing, you know, my husband would come home and go, I had a win today. He came home the other day and he said, I had a win because someone at work bought me a coffee and I didn't buy it. You know, it's like, oh, yes, like we saved $6 that day, things like that. And we sort of have a good giggle about it. But it's all those little things that really add up. And it does just go to show like being on the same page is what's important.
You've got to celebrate all the successes, big and small, and it is so satisfying. It's almost an aphrodisiac. On the weekend, we cleaned out our backyard and we could have paid someone a couple of $1,000s to do it for us. Mm-hmm. But Tom and I got out there with a chainsaw, or I didn't do the chainsaw, I'm not trustworthy with the chainsaw, but Tom was on the chainsaw and we were dragging all these huge strelitzias to the back of the yard to get them taken away. And we did it ourselves and I was loving it. I'm like, come on, Tom, we're doing it. It was just so good. And it's because we were doing something together, working on it. And Tom was kicking and screaming. He's like, can't we just pay someone to do this? Like, he was really digging his because he works so hard and works pretty much all weekend long. So the last thing he wanted to do is come and do more manual labor. But by the end of it, we were like, oh my God, that was so good. What we did, look what we like, teamwork, and we saved money along the way because we did it ourselves. And it was, something incredibly magical about it. Look, what would you say to anyone that is listening to this podcast right now and is on the fence? They're like, yeah, I've heard of this law of attraction, manifestation, law of abundance, affirmation work. What would you say to those people sitting on the fence?
I would say just give it a go. Find something that you're really connected to. Like if that is saving up to pay a chunk off your mortgage or top up your emergency fund or purchase something that you really want to, like whatever you're connected to. I think that's the biggest thing. You have to really be connected to it because, like you said, there are times where it does stall or become stagnant. You've got to push through. So that end goal has to be really important to you. So I would say do it. It's such an amazing process. You learn so much about what you do and don't value that's within your life or within your budget. You'll be surprised what you're spending your money on or wasting your money on that you don't value. Yeah. So having that little goal really motivate you. And it's also, I think, what you learn afterwards. Like I now realize I really like breaking my goals down month by month. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just because it's that short-term gratification. I'm not sure, but I love the month by month thing. Okay, so like the month of January, we're going to do this, or February, because it is such a short time frame. So it's kind of a race to the finish. So it also is about doing the money manifestation, but taking whatever you learn in that and applying it to the next goal and the next goal and the next goal. And so I guess it's about educating yourself. And that's what I really liked about it.
I'm so happy for your results. I'm so excited about you achieving your next goal through this, like new and additional flow of money into your life. So please keep me posted as to how you go. And thank you so much for sharing this story and inspiring other people, because I think more and more people, as we shift and evolve and become more meaningful people and mindful people, we are definitely opening ourselves up to this, like, I guess, magic universe.
The affirmations, like I listen to the affirmations and there's something about I just love, like I just go, oh, this is so true. Like, yes, I am open to the flow of money. And I actually said this to my sister the other day. You know, she had a large expense with a dentist bill and I said, you're open to the flow of money. And she laughed and then she was like, yes, I am open to the flow of money. And like we had a laugh and she loved it. One
of my really closest friends and oldest friends, he was always kind of like, oh, it's not fair. This person bought an investment property. I want one. This person's doing that, or this person got a pay rise. This person earning this much. I want this. And he got really kind of in this funny kind of toxic mindset. And I was like, you've got to be open to the flow of money. And he was like, what are you talking about? And when we had this, and I'm actually going to get him to come in and do a podcast with me about this, because he learned to shift his mindset. And he's now, I think he's on his third or fourth property, on an incredible job, doing incredibly well. And when we speak about it, it's like, you said to me, I need to be open to the flow of money. I realized I wasn't. It's important. Some people, they're closed to it. That's no problem. I promise I'll publish a really strategic, technical podcast next week for those people. But for other people who are like, actually, no, there is something to this, join in with us.
And I think the affirmations and the manifestation and focusing on your own goal, I think that it enables you to block out the external noise. I think we live in a world where there is just so much. You've only got to flick through social media and go, oh, that person's doing this or this, or why aren't I? Whereas I think you become so focused on what you're working on that you don't necessarily worry about what's going on around you. And I think that that's a huge key to achieving your goals too.
Absolutely, 100%. The combination of the two is where the magic really magnifies. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing the story with me and with everybody who listens to this podcast. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I will let you begin your Monday morning. So thank you so much. And hopefully we'll touch base again in a few months where you tell me however long it takes. Manifesting magic.